Happy Pride Month. Should have done it like, yes, girl, Kiki. Anna's got a headache. She's not participating. I'm being too loud. Recent thing that happened to me the other day. It was interesting because there was a pride parade going on, and I was taking a cab to work, and it's like it was this interesting dynamic where it's like, you know, like sometimes I feel like so much has changed for the better, and then I just, you know, then you get like a little dose of reality or something. You step out of your own world into somebody else's, and that's kind of what happened with this cab ride. So there was a lineup on the street for the bus, and the guy's saying, yeah, anyone who's going down this street, you know, because in my province we have Pride in September rather than August, unlike every other province in Canada. Why, I don't know. But it is conjoined with First Nations month as well. So it's like 2 prides in one. But the this guy's complaining about the pride parade because it's backing everything up and it's making things difficult. And I was and so it's like, okay, so this dude hasn't clocked me. This dude doesn't know. I didn't have any makeup on either. And this dude doesn't know. And I'm like, oh yeah, those, you know, gays, they think they rule the world. And he's like, yes, exactly. And if you open your mouth against them, you know, they, you're the bad person. In relation to what? In relation to what? You know? And I was just kind of like, and so I just played it up, right? I just kept going, you know, and I was like, you know, they want to have children, they want equal rights, they want to change everything and all this sort of jazz, right? And I was just, I don't know, I just played up a bit. And towards the end of it, I was like, yeah, you know, it's like if you want to be like a gay dude and you want to dress like a woman, you know, just keep it to yourself. Do it in your own bedroom. Keep it to yourself. Which is like, I just played up all the classic cliches that you know, that people have pulled out over the years. And he was like, right? Exactly. And he just started laughing, right? And I was like, and then I paid him and I was like, thank you, sir. Have a good day, right? And I got out of it and I was just kind of like, conflicted, you know, conflicted. Like I kind of wanted to pull the rug out with underneath the guy and go ha ha ha, look, you caught one. Or one of us caught you or something, being ignorant. But it kind of goes to show how little things have changed. You know? And it's kind of like I don't know, I'm kind of afraid to go to Pride Parade, to be honest with you. But and I don't particularly have pride in being, some people would say this is wrong, but I don't particularly have pride in being a girl who transitioned. This is kind of a thorn in my side, if anything. But it's interesting, you know. And then there was another time with another cab driver, and I'm driving to work, right? And again, how things change so quickly when you're someone like me. And we're getting there, and I realized that I've forgotten my card. And I don't have any cash on me. You know? And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pay you later because I don't have it on me. And he's like, well. And I was like, is that okay? And he's like, well. And he's driving. He's not really answering me, you know, but I've explained to him, I don't have my bank card, right? I don't have any cash. I will have to pay you later. And he drops me off. And so he's like, well, you can e-transfer it to me. And I'm like, I can't do that without my card. right? I will have to catch up with you later and pay you back later. I can e-transfer to you later, but I need my card. And so this guy turns around and he starts smiling in my face, right? And he's like, you're not going anywhere. And I've been in similar situations before where I got raped, right? And I was like, and I told him, you know, you want a piece of me? You want a piece of me? The sidewalk is right there, right there, right? You know, and I said to him, and I got out, right? He was telling me I wasn't allowed to leave the cab without paying him. And if you think about it, how am I going to pay this guy without money? With this, or this, maybe this, right? And it's like, again, I didn't have any makeup on, and I was putting my makeup on the way to work. And so, like, I don't know that if he thought, I don't know if he knew. I don't know if he knew. But he was like, oh, you call my mother an effer or something like that, right? And I was like, yeah, you are a mofo, you know, like you are trapping me in your cab. You're holding me hostage, and I have no means of paying you. It is an accident. I will have to pay you later, right? It's not even like you're holding me up from getting to where it is that I need to go. It's like you're holding me hostage, right? And you are not, and you're expecting me to give you something when I don't have any money. What logical conclusion would you deduce from this, right? And then later I meet him again because we called for another cab, and Ann and I are there, right? And this guy shows up, and I didn't remember the guy. And I got in the cab, and he was like, oh, you're the one I drove before. And I'm like, yeah. And I didn't clue into who he was. And he was like, I'm not taking you anywhere first without you pay me. And I was like, oh, it's that dude. And I looked at Anna, I was like, this is the dude that held me hostage, right? And he's like, yeah, I did that. And he's smiling, he's all proud about it. And I'm like, you're going to hold me hostage in a cab? You're going to hold me hostage in a cab for $20? For $20. Right? This is, it's not even like I took something. It was an accident. It wasn't like I wasn't willing to make payment arrangements because I attempted to do that. Right? And then you expect me to pay you without money? Right? And so I got the guy's car number, and I got it, and I called the cops. I called the cops, and I'm talking to the guy on the phone, and the guy's like, okay, so what's your name? And I told him, and he's like, oh, well, I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, okay, so you clocked me by my voice. Okay. Right? Or you clocked me by my number. You had a different name when the name came up with this number, or you have my dead name somehow or another associated to this number, or you like clocked me by my voice. And so I'm explaining the situation to him, and he said, well, we'll send some cops out there in time. And meanwhile, this cab driver pulls down the street and parks around the corner in plain view. In plain view. Right? I mean, if that's not, again, threatening, I don't know what is. And, and two, I have no problem paying this guy. I have no problem paying this guy. The issue is the fact that he held me hostage in his cab. He smiled in my face like he was going to get some sort of sexual act out of me. And then he held me hostage, telling me that I wasn't allowed to leave until I gave him something. You know? And the cops show up, right? And I'm recanting the story to the cops, to the police. And the first thing they do get out of when they first show up, they get out and they're like, so can we talk in your apartment? And I'm like, what you talking about, Willis? And so I brought him into the apartment because I wasn't going to tell him no. I mean, maybe I should have, but I didn't. And so I bring him in, And they kind of like, they do this like look around or something like that. And okay, I get that. And we had Max in the bedroom, and Max was barking, and then they wanted to see my ID. And I think it was because they're trying to figure out, they're trying to like clock me. And I don't know that they did successfully, but they're trying to, because they're feeling like things weren't adding up. And if you think about it in this situation, right? Like, you know, it's a matter of privilege, right? Maybe a cis girl would be respected, and I would be like dissed as another dude. You just defend yourself, kind of thing. And the guy was like not really listening to what I was telling him, because my point being was, you know, this guy held me captive in his car, right, and expected me to pay him without money. What do you assume that this would be? And he just didn't get it, or he didn't accept it. And I think part of the reason why he didn't accept it is because he probably clocked me and realized that I'm not cis, right? And there was one point where my girlfriend, you know, she opened up and she spoke to him and tried to explain something to him, and he cut her off in a very like disapproving, demeaning sort of way. You know, he basically suggested me to make a formal complaint, like to the consumer board or something like that. You know, like you don't make a formal complaint to the consumer board for potential rape. You know, and I explained to the guy, I've been raped before. You know, and I just kind of like rolled with it, because at that point there was nothing I could do. You know, I've talked to the cab company. The cab company's not returning my phone calls. The cab company's not responding to my emails, even though I told them that I talked to the police. Right? And I like the exact same thing too. You know, it's like you corner anyone, and you start threatening like you're going to rape them. What are they going to do? They're going to push back. Anyone. They're going to logically push back. Although, when it's suddenly just happening to you, you just roll with it and you don't push back because you're afraid. But if it's not suddenly just happening, you know, I don't know. And I just really feel like I was just dismissed because, you know, this is either like a gay couple situation, you know, this is an LGBT situation, or this is like, this is a tranny. You know, this isn't a girl, this is a tranny kind of thing. There was another time when I had a boyfriend, and he was clearly invading my privacy, and then like kind of broadcasting through the, what do you call this? Through Instagram, through the video clips on Instagram when you click on the icon. And he was kind of like alluding to things that I had been talking to about with my mother, or something I text messaged to somebody else, or just various different things. And this was kind of like a really manipulative dude. And I'd been through this before with a girlfriend who invaded my privacy, and she was just like downright nasty. And she was just basically telling me to my face, you know, like about things about my apartment or things about my life and stuff like that. And both very traumatizing. And the second time I was like, no fucking way. I'm calling the cops. I'm calling the cops. And so I call the cops. Cop shows up, right? And cop is there, and I'm telling the cop, right, what the situation is. And he's like listening to me, and he's like, well, yeah, I mean, you would have to prove this, you would have to prove that, right? And I was he's like, where did you meet this guy? And I was like, on a dating site. And he's like, oh. what dating site? And I was like, Tammy, you know? And he was just, his response was like, oh, I have no idea what you guys do. As if being harassed, as if having my privacy invaded, you know, which is an aggressive act. It is an aggressive act, right? It's threatening. You know, if you invade a person's privacy, you know, you can do things like have their location. You can do things like track them, you know, and whatnot. And he just kind of like clammed up, and he was just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of gonna go now because I don't want to deal with you, right? Because you're a flaming homosexual or something. Anyways, I am. And, you know, it was like, and I just stopped him, and I was like, no, I want to file a restraining order. And he was like, well, you would never get it to stick. And I'm like, why not? What if I talk to a judge? And when I said that, his whole opinion, his attitude changed significantly at that point. And he's like, well, if you didn't lie about it, you know, and it's like, what do you, how is it that because suddenly, you know, you think that suddenly that I'm a trans girl, you know, or a flaming homosexual, you know, chasing after another homosexual or something like that, you know, and it's like, you don't know what we do. You know, do you not as a police officer represent the community? Right? You know, like a lot of people talk about like the LGBT community. I would like to think it's a community. A lot of the time I think it's more of a spectrum. You know, it is very much a spectrum of human sexuality within the spectrum of human sexuality, right? But it's also too, it's like, you know, when you're talking about community, it's like, this place where I live, this is my community, right? You know, this place where I work, this place where I shop, you know, this place where I buy my records, and, you know, these transit routes I take, and so on and so on and so on. You know, this is all also community. You know, this dating site that I'm on is also community. And, you know, like this police officer who is renting me, who is here to talk to me, is also a part of my community, right? To say that there's like two separate communities is false. Sometimes there's subcategories within subcategories, communities within communities, you know, just like you have friends within circles of friends and whatnot. But it's just like how, you know, it's like, it's so easy suddenly to start discrediting people, you know, for being labeled homosexual, or discrediting my gender, right? Because if I'm with a dude, it's a straight situation. It's a straight situation. If I'm with a girl, it's a lesbian situation. And I just like, I don't know. I wish I could, you know, retell some other stories of other girls who are close to me who've been through a lot of shit, but those aren't my stories. But it's interesting how they suddenly just back away, you know, and suddenly like start dismissing, you know, what you're going through, as if it's justified or something, or, you know, they don't want to get involved. Like, why would a cop not want to get involved within a manipulative, you know, relationship of invasion of privacy? If I was a cis girl, you know, they might be all about it. And when I pass, right, they're all about it. When I don't pass, they're like, suddenly I'm the enemy. You know, when my girlfriend speaks up, right, suddenly I'm the enemy. You know, when the butch one speaks up in the relationship and starts talking about the guy who fucking held me hostage, you know, and was basically demanding a sexual act as payment and smiling in my face about it, right? Suddenly, you know, she's being told to shut up. Don't talk whilst I'm talking.
In my own house.
In her own house. I would like to think that things have changed a lot. I would like to think that, like, maybe we don't necessarily need to live in fear and stuff like that. I think it'd be bullshit. Things have changed. But not that much.